It was a crisp, breezy evening in Madrid, the kind where the city seemed to hum with life and energy. The streets were alive with the usual buzz of people finishing their day, meeting friends, or simply enjoying the golden glow of the setting sun. For most, it was just another day. But for Cristiano Ronaldo, this evening was about to become anything but ordinary. Fresh from an intense training session, Ronaldo's mind was filled with thoughts of the upcoming match. His car, sleek and unmistakably his, rolled to a stop near a quiet cafe. Fans who had been lingering nearby erupted in whispers and excited gestures. Even from the tinted windows, they could sense it was him. Some gathered their courage, hoping for a photo or autograph, while others simply stood in awe, marveling at the presence of a global icon. Ronaldo stepped out, his movements as fluid and confident as they were on the pitch. The air seemed to shift around him, people paused mid-conversation, their eyes tracking his every step. Dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit that somehow made him look effortlessly stylish, he radiated the quiet assurance of someone who had achieved everything and yet still sought more. But amid the muted chaos of admiring fans and the usual city hustle, something peculiar caught his eye. Not far from the cafe's entrance, a young boy sat on the cold sidewalk. His clothes were worn, mismatched, and far too thin for the weather. His hair was messy, as though it hadn't seen a comb in days, and his small frame seemed almost lost against the backdrop of bustling adults. Yet, what struck Ronaldo most wasn't the boy's appearance, it was his focus. The boy was completely absorbed in what he was doing, his head bent low over a battered notebook. His hands moved quickly, sketching something with a pencil that looked as if it might break at any moment. The pages of the notebook were tattered, their edges curled from use. Smudges of charcoal and pencil dust streaked his fingers, evidence of hours, perhaps days, spent immersed in his work. Passers-by barely noticed him. To them, he was invisible, a small, insignificant figure blending into the cityscape. A few glanced briefly, their expressions indifferent, before continuing on their way. No one stopped to ask what he was doing or why he was there. But Ronaldo noticed. Something about the boy's intensity drew him in. For a moment, he stood still, observing from a distance. The boy's hand darted across the page, adding details, erasing, and redrawing, his expression a mix of concentration and quiet determination. It wasn't the idle doodling of a bored child, it was deliberate, almost meticulous, as though the sketches in that notebook held a purpose far greater than anyone could imagine. Ronaldo approached slowly, his curiosity piqued. The boy didn't seem to notice him at first, too engrossed in his work to look up. People nearby watched with interest as the football star crouched down, bringing himself to the boy's level. "What's that you're drawing?" Ronaldo asked, his voice warm and gentle. The boy flinched at the sound, startled. His head snapped up, revealing a face that was both young and weathered. His cheeks were smudged with dirt, and his eyes, large, dark, and filled with a mixture of surprise and wariness, met Ronaldo's. For a moment, he didn't speak, as though unsure whether to answer or flee. Slowly, he clutched the notebook tighter to his chest, shielding it as if it contained his most guarded secrets. "Just something," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. It was the kind of response that invited no further questions, the kind that said, "Please don't pry." But Ronaldo wasn't deterred. He offered a reassuring smile, one that had calmed countless nervous fans and teammates alike. "May I see it?" he asked, his tone kind but persistent. The boy hesitated, his grip on the notebook tightening. For a long moment, he seemed to weigh his options. Finally, with visible reluctance, he opened it just a crack, enough for Ronaldo to catch a glimpse of the pages within. What Ronaldo saw made him pause. The sketches weren't the random scribbles of a child. They were detailed, intricate designs that seemed far beyond the boy's years. Machines, diagrams, and symbols filled the pages, each one more complex than the last. Some looked like blueprints, others like concepts for inventions that didn't yet exist. Ronaldo couldn't make sense of all of it, but one thing was clear, this was no ordinary notebook. "What is this?" Ronaldo asked, his curiosity deepening. "Did you come up with all of this yourself?" The boy nodded hesitantly, his eyes darting to the ground. "It's just an idea," he said softly. I like to draw things." Before Ronaldo could ask more, a voice interrupted them. "What's he doing here?" It was an older man, dressed in a business suit, who had stopped to observe the interaction. He glanced at the boy with thinly veiled disdain, his tone dismissive. "Shouldn't he be at home? Or school?" The boy flinched at the words, his shoulders hunching slightly, but he didn't reply. Ronaldo, however, looked up, his expression unreadable. "Maybe he's here because this is where he needs to be," he said evenly, his voice carrying just enough weight to silence further comments. The businessman muttered something under his breath and walked away, leaving Ronaldo and the boy alone once more. Ronaldo turned back to the boy, his gaze softening. "Don't mind people like him," he said. "Tell me more about these drawings. What are they for?" The boy hesitated again, but something about Ronaldo's presence seemed to reassure him. He flipped through the notebook, showing more of his sketches. "They're ideas," he said, his voice steadier now. "For things that could help people. Like, machines that don't need power to work. Or ways to make energy from movement." Ronaldo's eyes widened slightly. The boy spoke with a quiet passion, his words halting but sincere. It was clear that these weren't just random thoughts, they were the beginnings of something extraordinary. As the boy continued to explain, Ronaldo found himself drawn in, not just by the complexity of the ideas but by the boy's determination. There was a spark in his eyes, a fire that refused to be extinguished despite the challenges he clearly faced. And in that moment, Ronaldo knew one thing for certain, this encounter was no accident. It was the beginning of something much, much bigger. For a while, Ronaldo just listened, his famous smile softening into something more introspective. The boy's words were not those of a typical 12-year-old. They carried a weight, a conviction that belied his age. This wasn't just a hobby or idle daydreaming, it was as though he had poured his heart and soul into every sketch, every line. "What's your name?" Ronaldo finally asked, breaking the boy's flow of explanation. "Matteo," the boy said after a pause, his voice almost hesitant, as if he rarely had to share his name with anyone. "Matteo," Ronaldo repeated, nodding. "That's a strong name. I like it." Matteo gave a small, fleeting smile before his expression turned guarded again. Ronaldo noticed. There was a story behind this boy, one he hadn't yet told, but it wasn't hard to imagine. The tattered clothes, the dirt on his hands, the way he clutched the notebook as if it were his only possession, all of it painted a picture of struggle. "You've got some incredible ideas in here," Ronaldo said, tapping the notebook gently. "Where did you learn to draw like this?" Matteo shrugged. "I just figured it out. I watch things. Machines, people, anything that moves. And then I think about how to make them better." The simplicity of his answer struck Ronaldo. He knew talent when he saw it, and Matteo had it in spades. But there was more to this boy than raw skill. There was resilience, a quiet determination that reminded Ronaldo of his own journey. Growing up in Madeira, Ronaldo had faced his share of challenges. He knew what it felt like to be overlooked, underestimated. That same fire he had felt as a young boy trying to make a name for himself was burning now in Matteo. "Where are your parents?" Ronaldo asked gently, though he already suspected the answer. Matteo's eyes flickered down to the pavement. "Don't have any," he said flatly. "Not anymore." Ronaldo's chest tightened. He could see the boy didn't want pity, his tone was matter of fact, almost dismissive. Still, it was impossible not to feel a pang of sadness. "So, where do you stay?" he pressed, though he was careful to keep his voice neutral. "Here and there," Matteo replied with a shrug. "Sometimes with friends. Sometimes nowhere." It was the kind of answer that might have sounded casual if it weren't for the reality behind it. Matteo had no stability, no safety net. Yet, here he was, sketching ideas for inventions that could change the world. It was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Ronaldo leaned back slightly, studying the boy. There was no doubt in his mind now this meeting wasn't random. It was fate. As they talked, the world around them continued to move. People came and went, some sneaking glances at Ronaldo, others whispering excitedly. A few fans mustered the courage to approach, and Ronaldo signed autographs and posed for photos with his usual graciousness. But even as he did, his attention kept drifting back to Matteo. It wasn't long before someone else noticed the boy. A cafe worker stepped outside, her hands on her hips, frowning. "Matteo," she called sharply. "You can't just sit here all day. You're scaring off customers." Matteo's face flushed, and he scrambled to gather his notebook, stuffing it into a worn backpack. "Sorry," he mumbled, his voice small. Before he could leave, Ronaldo stood. His towering frame and commanding presence immediately silenced the worker. "He's not bothering anyone," Ronaldo said, his voice calm but firm. "In fact, he's helping me." The worker blinked, clearly unsure how to respond. Ronaldo smiled, his charm cutting through the tension. "Do you mind if we sit here a little longer? I'll make it worth your while." The worker's expression shifted from irritation to realization. "Of course, Mr. Ronaldo," she said quickly, nodding. "Take all the time you need." Matteo looked up at Ronaldo, his wide eyes filled with something between gratitude and disbelief. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly. "Yes, I did," Ronaldo replied. "Nobody should make you feel like you don't belong." Settling back down, Ronaldo gestured for Matteo to reopen the notebook. "Show me more," he said. Matteo hesitated, but then he slowly pulled the book from his backpack. This time, he opened it fully, flipping through the pages. Each one revealed something new: sketches of turbines powered by wind, designs for shoes that generated electricity with every step, concepts for water purification systems. "What gave you these ideas?" Ronaldo asked, genuinely curious. "I see problems," Matteo said simply. "And I think about how to fix them. Like the turbines, they could work in villages where there's no electricity. And the shoes? People walk so much, but all that energy gets wasted. What if we could use it?" Ronaldo was speechless. This boy wasn't just creative, he was a visionary. "Have you ever shown these to anyone?" he asked. Matteo shook his head. "Who would care? I'm just nobody." "Don't say that," Ronaldo said firmly. "You're not nobody. You've got something special, Matteo. More than most people ever will." For a moment, Matteo didn't respond. Then, quietly, he asked, "Do you really think so?" "I don't think so," Ronaldo replied. "I know so." As the evening wore on, Ronaldo found himself thinking more and more about Matteo's situation. Here was a boy with extraordinary talent but no resources, no support system. Ronaldo couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do something. "Matteo," he said after a while, "what would you do if you had the chance to make these ideas real?" Matteo looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. I'd build them," he said. "I'd find a way to help people. But, that's never going to happen. I don't have money. I don't even have a place to live." Ronaldo smiled. "What if I told you that anything is possible? That you just need the right people to believe in you?" Matteo frowned slightly, as if the idea were too good to be true. Why would anyone believe in me? Because I do, Ronaldo said simply. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Matteo stared at Ronaldo, trying to process what he'd just heard. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to feel something he hadn't dared to in years: hope. As the night deepened, Ronaldo made a decision. Matteo, he said, how about we make a deal? You keep working on these ideas, and I'll help you find the people who can make them happen. Matteo's eyes widened. You'd do that? Why? Because I know talent when I see it, Ronaldo said. And because everyone deserves a chance. Matteo didn't know what to say. For so long, he had been invisible, just another face in the crowd. But now, for the first time, someone saw him. Not just anyone, Cristiano Ronaldo. And in that moment, the wheels of fate began to turn. The boy flinched at Ronaldo's question, unsure if the man in front of him was genuinely interested or about to laugh at him like so many others. His thin fingers trembled slightly as he clutched the notebook closer to his chest, instinctively shielding its contents from prying eyes. Just some ideas, the boy repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. There was a mix of defiance and fear in his tone, as if he were bracing for criticism. Ronaldo, however, didn't move. His sharp eyes scanned the boy's face, noting the tension in his shoulders, the dirt on his cheeks, and the wary flicker in his dark eyes. He saw more than a homeless child, he saw potential. Something extraordinary lay behind that fragile exterior. What kind of ideas? Ronaldo pressed gently. His voice carried a warmth that disarmed even the most skeptical fans, but the boy still hesitated. Around them, the streets of Madrid buzzed with life. People passed by, their footsteps hurried, their conversations blending into a low hum. Most glanced at the pair curiously, but their attention didn't linger. To them, this was just another wealthy celebrity indulging in a moment of charity. Yet the whispers grew louder. Why's Ronaldo wasting his time with that kid? A man muttered, nudging his companion. He's probably just begging for money. Shouldn't he be in school? A woman added, her tone dripping with disapproval. She eyed the boy's tattered clothes and scuffed shoes, shaking her head as if his mere presence offended her. Ronaldo heard the murmurs. He wasn't one to react to public chatter. Years of being in the spotlight had taught him patience, but this time, something about their dismissive tones ignited a spark of irritation. He didn't let it show. Instead, he turned his attention back to the boy. Matteo, the boy finally said, almost reluctantly. My name's Matteo. Matteo, Ronaldo repeated with a nod. That's a good name. Now, will you let me see what you've got in there? Matteo's grip on the notebook loosened slightly, but he still hesitated. He had been laughed at too many times before. Teachers, other kids, even strangers on the street, they all thought he was just another poor boy with silly dreams. Why would this man, a football legend, care about his ideas? You're not going to understand it, Matteo said, his voice defensive. Nobody does. Try me, Ronaldo said with a small smile. There was no condescension in his voice, only genuine curiosity. Matteo sighed, his resolve faltering. Slowly, he opened the notebook and flipped to the first page. Ronaldo leaned in, his eyebrows furrowing as he studied the intricate sketches before him. The page was filled with detailed diagrams of what appeared to be some kind of device: gears, levers, and circuits, all interconnected with precision. Arrows and handwritten notes surrounded the drawings, explaining how the mechanism might work. It was far from perfect, but it was undeniably ambitious. What is this? Ronaldo asked, his voice tinged with amazement. Is this a machine? Matteo nodded, his eyes fixed on the notebook. It's an engine that doesn't need fuel, he said quietly. It uses motion. Like, if you spin it, it keeps going. It could power things in places where there's no electricity. Ronaldo blinked, caught off guard by the complexity of the explanation. You came up with this yourself? Matteo nodded again, a hint of pride flickering in his expression. I've been working on it for a while. It's not finished, but it could work. The murmurs around them grew louder. A few passers-by stopped to watch the exchange, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Some shook their heads, dismissing the boy's ideas as nonsense. Others muttered things like, "What does a street kid know about engines?" Ronaldo ignored them. He was too engrossed in Matteo's notebook to care about the opinions of strangers. Page after page revealed more sketches: turbines, water purification systems, and even a design for shoes that could generate electricity with every step. How do you know how to draw all this? Ronaldo asked, genuinely impressed. Matteo shrugged. I just figure it out. I watch things, like how machines work. And I think about how to make them better. The simplicity of the answer stunned Ronaldo. This boy had no formal education, no access to resources, yet he had a mind bursting with ingenuity. It was both remarkable and tragic. But not everyone was as impressed. A middle-aged man in a suit, who had been watching from a distance, stepped closer. What's all this? He asked, his tone sharp. He glanced at Matteo, then at the notebook, and snorted. Looks like nonsense to me. Matteo's shoulders tensed, and he instinctively closed the notebook. He didn't say anything, but the man's words had clearly stung. Ronaldo straightened, his gaze turning cold. It's not nonsense, he said firmly. This boy has talent. The man raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. Talent doesn't mean much if you're sitting on the street, does it? Matteo flinched at the comment, his fingers tightening around the notebook. But Ronaldo didn't back down. Maybe it wouldn't mean much to someone who only sees what's on the surface, he said, his voice calm but cutting. But to someone who actually takes the time to look, it means everything. The man opened his mouth to respond, but Ronaldo's piercing gaze silenced him. With a huff, the man walked away, muttering something under his breath about celebrities and their pet projects. Matteo watched him leave, his expression unreadable. He's right, you know, he said softly. I'm just a kid on the street. Nobody cares about what I can do. Ronaldo crouched back down, meeting Matteo's gaze. That's not true, he said. I care. And if you keep working on this, one day, the whole world will care. Matteo's eyes searched Ronaldo's face, looking for any sign of insincerity. But all he saw was genuine belief. For the first time in years, Matteo felt a spark of hope. Still, the world around them wasn't as forgiving. As the evening wore on, more people stopped to watch, their whispers growing louder. Why's Ronaldo wasting his time on that kid? He's probably just feeling sorry for him. Doesn't he have better things to do? The words were like tiny daggers, each one chipping away at Matteo's fragile confidence. He had heard it all before, but hearing it now, in front of someone he admired, felt worse. Ronaldo, however, seemed unfazed. He stood tall, shielding Matteo from the judgmental stares. Don't listen to them, he said quietly. People will always have something to say. But that doesn't mean they're right. Matteo nodded, though his grip on the notebook remained tight. He wasn't used to kindness, especially not from someone like Ronaldo. It felt strange, almost unreal. Come on, Ronaldo said, gesturing toward the cafe. Let's get something to eat. You can tell me more about these ideas of yours. Matteo hesitated. I don't have any money, he admitted. Ronaldo chuckled. Did I ask if you did? Matteo blinked, then allowed a small smile to creep onto his face. For the first time in what felt like forever, he felt seen not as a problem to be solved, but as a person with potential. As they walked into the cafe, Matteo's grip on his notebook remained firm, almost as though it might be taken away at any moment. Ronaldo held the door open, and Matteo hesitated before stepping inside. It had been months, maybe even years, since he had been in a place like this. The warm lighting, the faint smell of coffee, and the hum of quiet conversations felt foreign, almost like another world. Ronaldo picked a table in the corner, away from the growing crowd of onlookers gathering outside the cafe windows. Matteo sat across from him, clutching his backpack protectively. A waiter approached, clearly nervous in Ronaldo's presence. "2 hot chocolates," Ronaldo said with a nod. He glanced at Matteo and added, "And whatever dessert you have, that's good." Matteo shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to react. He wasn't used to people buying him things, let alone treating him with this level of kindness. "You don't have to do this," he mumbled. Ronaldo smiled. "I know I don't. But I want to." Matteo's lips pressed into a thin line, his instincts warning him not to trust too easily. But something about Ronaldo's sincerity made it difficult to keep the wall up. As the waiter left, Ronaldo leaned forward. "Tell me more about your ideas. Where did you learn to draw like that?" Matteo glanced down at the table, tracing invisible patterns on its surface. "I just watched things. Machines, mostly. How they worked, how they broke. I'd take apart broken stuff when I found it: radios, old phones, anything. Then I'd try to put it back together." "And the notebook?" Ronaldo asked. Matteo hesitated before answering. "It was my mom's. She used to write in it, make grocery lists, stuff like that. After she was gone, I started using it. I didn't have paper, and it felt like she'd want me to keep using it." Ronaldo nodded slowly, understanding the unspoken weight behind Matteo's words. "She must have been proud of you." Matteo shrugged, his expression guarded. "Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't matter now." The hot chocolates arrived, steam rising from the mugs. Matteo stared at the rich smell filling his senses. It was a rare comfort, one he didn't think he deserved. Ronaldo noticed his hesitation. "Go ahead," Ronaldo urged. "It's yours." Tentatively, Matteo picked up the mug and took a small sip. The warmth spread through him, chasing away the cold that had settled in his bones from years of sleeping on streets and in alleys. For a moment, he allowed himself to enjoy it. "Do you ever think about what you'd do if things were different?" Ronaldo asked, breaking the silence. Matteo looked up, his brow furrowing. "Different how?" "If you had the tools you needed. A safe place to work. People to help you build your ideas." Matteo's expression hardened. "That's not how the world works. People don't help kids like me." Ronaldo tilted his head, considering the boy's words. He had heard similar sentiments before, from other young players who came from nothing, who had learned early on that survival often meant trusting no one. "Maybe not everyone," Ronaldo admitted. "But not everyone's the same." Matteo didn't respond. He had heard promises before, kind words that turned to nothing. It was easier not to hope. As they talked, the whispers outside grew louder. A few brave fans entered the cafe, their phones at the ready. Ronaldo glanced toward them, his expression calm but firm. He didn't mind the attention, but he didn't want it to overwhelm Matteo. One fan, a young man with a football jersey, approached the table. "Mr. Ronaldo, can I get a picture?" Ronaldo smiled politely. "Of course." He stood, posing for a quick photo, but his focus remained on Matteo. The boy had shrunk into his chair, his shoulders hunched, trying to make himself invisible. As Ronaldo returned to his seat, Matteo shook his head. "You don't have to stay here. They want you, not me." "I'm not here for them," Ronaldo said firmly. I'm here for you. Matteo blinked, unprepared for such a direct response. He wanted to believe it, but doubt lingered. Why? He asked quietly. Why do you care? Ronaldo leaned back, folding his arms. Because I see something in you. Something special. And I've been where you are not exactly, but close enough. I know how hard it is when the world doesn't believe in you. Matteo frowned, his fingers drumming on the table. But you're famous. Rich. You have everything. I didn't start that way, Ronaldo said. When I was a kid, I didn't have much. People doubted me, said I'd never make it. But I worked hard, and I didn't give up. Someone gave me a chance, and that's all I needed. Just one chance. Matteo looked down at his hands. The words resonated with him, but they also scared him. What if this wasn't real? What if it was just another fleeting moment of kindness that would disappear as soon as Ronaldo walked away? Their conversation was interrupted by another voice. Excuse me, a man said, his tone sharp. He was dressed in a business suit, his expression skeptical as he eyed Matteo. What's going on here? Is this some kind of publicity stunt? Ronaldo's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. No, he said simply. I'm talking to a young inventor. The man laughed, a short, condescending sound. Inventor? That's what you call him. He gestured to Matteo's tattered clothes and smudged face. He's just a street kid. What could he possibly invent? Matteo's face turned red, and he quickly stuffed his notebook into his backpack. The man's words had cut deep, and Ronaldo could see the shame and anger building in the boy's eyes. Ronaldo stood, his presence towering and commanding. He can invent more than you'd ever imagine, he said, his voice calm but firm. And he's got more talent in that notebook than most people have in their entire lives. The man opened his mouth to respond, but the intensity in Ronaldo's gaze made him falter. He muttered something under his breath and walked away. Matteo stared at the table, his fists clenched. He's right, he said bitterly. I'm nothing. Just a kid on the street. No, Ronaldo said firmly. He's wrong. And you're more than you realize. As the cafe quieted down, Ronaldo reached across the table and placed a hand on Matteo's shoulder. Listen to me, he said. You've got something special. I can see it, and so will the rest of the world. But you have to believe in yourself first. Matteo looked up, his eyes filled with uncertainty. What if I fail? He asked softly. Everyone fails, Ronaldo said. I've failed more times than I can count. But failure doesn't mean the end. It means you're trying. And trying is the first step to success. The words hung in the air, their weight sinking in. For the first time, Matteo allowed himself to think about the possibility of something better. It was a fragile hope, but it was there. I don't know if I can do it, Matteo admitted. Ronaldo smiled. You don't have to know right now. You just have to start. The man in the suit laughed, the sound dripping with disdain. Unexpected places, you say? Well, I've been in business long enough to know a scam when I see one. He turned his sharp gaze to Matteo. And this, boy, if you can even call him that, isn't the next Einstein. He's just another street rat looking for attention. Matteo flinched at the words. He lowered his head, his confidence draining away. The notebook in his lap suddenly felt heavier, as though every idea within it had become worthless. His fingers gripped the edges, prepared to close it for good. But Ronaldo didn't let the moment pass. He stepped forward, his stance commanding, his voice steady but firm. You know what I've learned in my life, he said, his tone cutting through the room like a sharp blade. People like you, people who think they know it all, you're the ones who miss what matters most. You see a boy. I see brilliance. The businessman sneered. Brilliance. Look at him. He's got nothing. Ronaldo's jaw tightened, but he didn't take the bait. Instead, he looked back at Matteo, who was staring at the ground. Matteo, he said softly, show me again. Show everyone. Matteo hesitated, his hands trembling. He glanced at the crowd that had begun to form around them, some curious, some skeptical, and others openly mocking. Fear gnawed at him, but Ronaldo's unwavering gaze gave him the smallest spark of courage. With a deep breath, Matteo opened the notebook once more. This time, he didn't just show the first few sketches. He flipped through page after page, each one revealing a new design, more intricate and imaginative than the last. There were schematics for energy harnessing shoes, concepts for wind-powered generators, and even ideas for water filtration systems using everyday materials. The cafe fell silent as people leaned in to get a better look. Even the businessman, his smug expression faltering, couldn't hide his curiosity. Ronaldo pointed to one of the sketches, his brow furrowed in thought. This one, he said. Explain it to me. Matteo nodded, his voice shaky at first but growing stronger with each word. It's a shoe with tiny generators inside. Every time you step, it creates a small amount of energy. If enough people wore them, it could power lights, charge phones, maybe even bigger things. Ronaldo's eyes widened, and he glanced up at the crowd. Do you hear that? This boy isn't just dreaming, he's solving problems. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Some nodded in agreement, while others remained skeptical. The businessman crossed his arms, his lips curling into a smirk. Even if his ideas worked, which I doubt, who's going to fund a kid like him? Ideas are worthless without money and connections. Ronaldo straightened, his presence towering over the man. Money and connections aren't everything. Passion, talent, and perseverance, that's what changes the world. Ronaldo turned back to Matteo, his expression softening. You remind me of someone I knew, he said, his voice quieter now. A boy from Madeira. He didn't have much, just a ball and a dream. People doubted him, too. They told him he'd never make it. But he worked hard, and he didn't stop believing. Matteo blinked, realizing that Ronaldo was talking about himself. What happened to him, he asked, though he already knew the answer. Ronaldo smiled. He proved them all wrong. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Matteo felt something shift within him, a small but growing belief that maybe, just maybe, he could prove people wrong too. Let's test it, Ronaldo said suddenly, breaking the silence. Matteo looked at him, confused. Test what? Your ideas, Ronaldo said, gesturing to the notebook. Let's build something. Show them it's not just drawings. Matteo hesitated. I don't have the materials. I don't even have a place to work. Ronaldo grinned. We'll figure it out. But first, you have to believe it's possible. The businessman scoffed, shaking his head. This is ridiculous. You're wasting your time. Maybe, Ronaldo said, his voice calm but firm. But I'd rather waste time believing in someone than spend my life tearing them down. The crowd erupted in applause, and the businessman, realizing he was outnumbered, stormed off in a huff. The next few days were a whirlwind. Ronaldo had Matteo's notebook scanned and sent to a trusted engineer he knew in Lisbon. Meanwhile, he arranged for Matteo to have a temporary workspace, a small but functional garage outfitted with basic tools and supplies. At first, Matteo felt overwhelmed. The sudden attention, the new resources, and the constant presence of Ronaldo, it was all too much. He wasn't used to people caring, let alone believing in him. But Ronaldo had a way of easing the pressure. He didn't hover or push too hard. Instead, he checked in regularly, offering encouragement and advice when needed. One evening, As Matteo struggled to assemble a prototype for his energy-generating shoes, Ronaldo sat beside him, holding a flashlight. "It's not about getting it perfect the first time," Ronaldo said. "It's about learning from each attempt." Matteo sighed, frustrated. "What if it doesn't work? What if everyone was right?" Ronaldo chuckled. "You think I scored every goal on my first try? I missed more shots than I can count. But I kept shooting." Over time, Matteo's confidence began to grow. Each day brought small victories, a component that worked, a mechanism that fit just right, or an idea that proved feasible. With every step forward, he started to see himself not as a failure but as an inventor, someone with the potential to make a difference. One evening, as they tested a rough prototype, the shoes lit up with a faint glow, powered by Matteo's design. It wasn't much, just enough to charge a small LED, but it was proof that his ideas could work. Matteo stared at the glowing light, his eyes wide with disbelief. "It's working," he whispered. Ronaldo clapped him on the back, grinning. "I told you. You've got something special." But not everyone was as supportive. News of Matteo's partnership with Ronaldo spread quickly, drawing both admirers and critics. Some praised Ronaldo for his generosity and vision, while others accused him of using the boy for publicity. Matteo tried to ignore the negativity, but it wasn't easy. The doubts and insults from strangers echoed the insecurities he had carried for years. Ronaldo noticed the change in Matteo's demeanor and pulled him aside one afternoon. "Don't let them get to you," he said. "People will always have opinions. What matters is what you believe about yourself." Matteo nodded, though his expression remained uncertain. "I just want to prove them wrong." "You will," Ronaldo said confidently. "But remember, you're not doing this for them. You're doing this because you believe in it." Matteo poured every ounce of his energy into his work, determined to make his prototype perfect. With Ronaldo's unwavering support, he started to believe that his ideas weren't just dreams, they could become reality. But the challenges weren't just technical. The whispers of doubt in the media grew louder. "A homeless boy revolutionizing energy. It's a publicity stunt," read one headline. Matteo saw the articles and social media posts, each one chipping away at his confidence. One morning, as they prepared to present a working prototype to a small group of investors Ronaldo had assembled, Matteo froze. The shoes were ready, glowing faintly with the energy they captured from movement, but he wasn't sure if he was. "I can't do this," he said, staring at the prototype on the table. "What if they laugh at me? What if it doesn't work?" Ronaldo crouched beside him, his expression calm but serious. "Matteo, do you know how many times I've stood in front of a crowd that doubted me? Every time I walked onto the field, there were people waiting for me to fail. But I didn't play for them. I played for the love of the game. You're not here to impress anyone. You're here because you believe in what you've created." Matteo nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Ronaldo's words gave him just enough courage to keep going. The room was small but intimidating. The investors sat in a semicircle, their sharp eyes assessing every detail. Matteo stood at the front, his hands shaking slightly as he held the prototype. Ronaldo stood behind him, offering silent but steady support. Matteo cleared his throat. This is a shoe that can generate energy. Every step you take powers a tiny generator inside. It's not much yet, but if enough people use it, we can create a new source of sustainable energy." The room was silent, the investors exchanging skeptical glances. One of them, a stern-looking man with glasses, leaned forward. "And how do you propose scaling this? A concept is one thing, but turning it into a viable product is another." Matteo hesitated, unsure how to respond. Before he could speak, Ronaldo stepped forward. "That's why we're here," he said, his voice confident. "This boy has the vision and the talent. What he needs is support, resources, expertise, and people who believe in making the impossible possible. The investors murmured among themselves, but Matteo knew the demonstration would make or break their decision. He took a deep breath, slipped on the prototype shoes, and began to walk across the room. Each step caused the small LED light on the side to flicker, then glow steadily. The room fell silent. The faint but undeniable glow of the light was proof that the concept worked. One investor, a woman with a kind smile, stood up and approached Matteo. "This is incredible," she said, her voice warm. "It's not just the technology, it's the idea behind it. Harnessing something as simple as walking to create energy, it's brilliant." Another investor, still skeptical, asked, "But is it scalable? Can this really make a difference on a large scale?" Matteo, buoyed by the positive feedback, found his voice. "It's a start," he said. "Imagine if these shoes were in every school, every park, every city. Every step could add up. It's not just about one person, it's about everyone working together." Ronaldo smiled, proud of Matteo's growing confidence. The investors continued to discuss the potential of the project, some more enthusiastic than others. By the end of the meeting, 2 investors had agreed to provide funding for further development. Matteo couldn't believe it. For the first time, he felt that his dreams were within reach. With funding secured, Matteo's project moved into a small lab that Ronaldo had arranged. Engineers and designers joined the team, helping to refine the prototype and explore ways to scale the technology. But the journey wasn't without obstacles. Some of the engineers doubted Matteo's abilities, treating him as little more than a mascot for the project. "He's just a kid," one of them whispered when they thought he wasn't listening. "What does he know about real engineering?" The words stung, but Matteo refused to let them stop him. He threw himself into learning everything he could, spending long nights studying engineering books and watching tutorials. Slowly, he began to earn the respect of the team. One day, as they tested a new version of the prototype, one of the engineers approached him. "You were right about the generator placement," she admitted. "It's working better now." Matteo nodded, hiding a small smile. He was proving himself, one step at a time. The new prototypes were a success, generating enough energy to power small devices like phones and lamps. Ronaldo organized a demonstration at a local community center, inviting families, students, and journalists to see the shoes in action. Children ran around the room, their steps lighting up rows of bulbs connected to the shoes. The room filled with laughter and amazement as people realized the potential of the technology. A journalist approached Matteo, her camera rolling. "How does it feel to see your idea come to life?" she asked. Matteo hesitated, then smiled. "It feels like maybe I can make a difference." The story spread quickly, drawing attention from larger companies and organizations. Offers began to pour in, some genuine, others driven by profit motives. Matteo leaned on Ronaldo for guidance, knowing he needed to protect the integrity of his vision. As the project grew, so did the scrutiny. Critics accused Matteo of being a front for Ronaldo's philanthropy, questioning whether the boy was truly the mind behind the technology. Others dismissed the project as a gimmick, saying it wouldn't make a real impact. The pressure weighed heavily on Matteo. One night, as he worked late in the lab, he confided in Ronaldo. "What if they're right?" he asked. "What if I'm just a kid with a silly idea?" Ronaldo placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Matteo, the world will always have critics. But they don't define you. Your work does. And right now, your work is changing lives." Matteo nodded, the weight on his shoulders lifting just a little. He realized that the journey wasn't just about proving others wrong, it was about staying true to his vision. With each challenge, Matteo grew stronger, more determined. The shoes became more advanced, incorporating feedback from users and engineers. The project expanded, with schools and community centers adopting the technology. People from all over the world reached out to Matteo, sharing their own ideas and stories. He realized that his work was inspiring others to think differently about energy and innovation. And through it all, Ronaldo remained by his side, a mentor and friend who had believed in him when no one else did. The invitation to present Matteo's invention at a global energy summit was both a blessing and a burden. Matteo had come far, but this was the ultimate test. The event was packed with world leaders, scientists, and innovators all waiting to see if the boy's idea could truly stand alongside the giants of the industry. Matteo sat backstage, his prototype in hand, trying to steady his breathing. Ronaldo knelt beside him, his voice calm and encouraging. "Remember, Matteo, you've already done the hard part. You've turned a dream into reality. Now, just share your story." As Matteo stepped onto the stage, the lights felt blinding, and the murmurs from the crowd seemed deafening. He paused, gripping the microphone tightly. "Good morning," he began, his voice shaky but determined. "My name is Matteo, and I want to show you how footsteps can change the world." Matteo began with a story, describing how he had dreamed of creating something that could make a difference, even when life seemed stacked against him. His words were simple, but they carried a weight of authenticity that silenced the room. He then unveiled the shoes, a sleek, refined version of his original prototype. "These shoes are more than footwear," Matteo said. "Every step generates energy. Imagine schools where kids running in playgrounds power their classrooms, or entire towns walking together to light their streets." The audience watched intently as Matteo slipped on the shoes and stepped onto a specially designed track. With each step, a panel at the edge of the stage lit up, growing brighter and brighter. Gasps echoed through the room as the lights connected to a small monitor, displaying the amount of energy being generated in real time. "Now imagine this multiplied by millions of people," Matteo said, his voice gaining confidence. "Walking isn't just transportation, it's power." The audience erupted in applause, the sound filling the vast hall. Matteo looked over at Ronaldo, who gave him a proud nod. The boy had done it, he had captured the imagination of the world. As the applause died down, Matteo took a deep breath and revealed something even more ambitious. "This isn't just about shoes," he said. "This is about a movement, literally. We're developing ways to integrate this technology into roads, parks, and public spaces. Energy shouldn't come at the cost of our planet. It should come from us." The room was stunned. Questions poured in, technical, logistical, and even philosophical. Matteo answered each one with a combination of childlike honesty and the expertise he had gained from months of relentless work. One reporter asked, "How did you even come up with this idea? At your age, it seems impossible." Matteo smiled shyly. "I didn't have much growing up, but I had my notebook and my dreams. And I learned that the best ideas often come when you have nothing but your imagination." Not everyone was convinced. A skeptical voice from the audience challenged him, "This might work in theory, but can it truly scale to meet global energy demands? What about the costs and infrastructure? Isn't this just another idealistic project?" Matteo hesitated, the weight of the question pressing down on him. Then Ronaldo stood up from his seat, addressing the crowd. "Every groundbreaking idea started with skeptics. The light bulb, the airplane, the internet, none of them were perfect in their first iterations. But they had one thing in common: someone believed in them enough to give them a chance." The room grew quiet again. Matteo added, "I'm not saying this will solve all our problems overnight. But it's a step towards something better. Isn't that worth trying?" The applause that followed was louder than before, a standing ovation from most of the audience. Matteo's vision was no longer just a dream. It was a movement. After the presentation, investors and innovators crowded around Matteo. A renowned tech mogul approached him with an offer: full funding for the project, a state-of-the-art lab, and a global launch plan. But there was a catch: the company would own the patent, and Matteo's role would be reduced to a symbolic figurehead. Matteo felt the weight of the decision. This was the kind of opportunity that could change his life and accelerate his dream, but at what cost? He looked at Ronaldo for guidance. "You already know the answer," Ronaldo said, his voice steady. "This isn't just about money or fame. It's about staying true to your vision." Matteo turned to the mogul, his expression resolute. "Thank you, but no. This isn't just my invention, it's a gift to everyone. I won't let it become something only a few can afford." The rejection of the lucrative offer became a defining moment. It garnered widespread media attention, painting Matteo as not just an innovator but a visionary with integrity. Organizations began reaching out to support the project on Matteo's terms, offering resources without strings attached. Matteo and Ronaldo launched a non-profit initiative called Step Power, aimed at developing sustainable energy solutions accessible to everyone. They collaborated with engineers, scientists, and communities, creating pilot projects in underserved areas where even a small amount of energy could make a huge difference. As Matteo's work expanded, something incredible began to happen. Communities using the technology started to thrive not just because of the energy but because of the sense of empowerment it brought. People realized that their daily actions, even something as simple as walking, could contribute to something greater. In a small village where the technology was piloted, a young girl wrote a letter to Matteo. "Thank you for showing us that even our steps matter," it read. "You didn't just give us light. You gave us hope." Matteo read the letter aloud to his team, tears in his eyes. "This is why we started," he said. "Not for the headlines or the applause but for moments like this." Years later, Matteo's technology became a staple in cities and rural areas alike. Roads, parks, and public spaces were equipped with energy harvesting materials. Schools around the world used the shoes to power their lights, teaching children about sustainability in the process. Matteo, now a young man, stood on stage at an international summit, honored as one of the most influential innovators of the decade. Ronaldo sat in the front row, applauding louder than anyone else. In his acceptance speech, Matteo said, "This all started with a notebook, a dream, and someone who believed in me. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that every step counts no matter how small." The audience rose to their feet, clapping not just for Matteo's success but for the idea that even the smallest actions can lead to the biggest changes. Would you like to continue to the resolution and reflect on the legacy? Matteo's decision to prioritize accessibility over profit quickly became a global sensation. Media outlets praised the boy's unshakable principles, dubbing him a champion of the future. But with the spotlight came even greater challenges. Large corporations began lobbying against Matteo's initiative, claiming that his energy solutions posed a threat to traditional industries. Negative press, orchestrated by those who had the most to lose, began to circulate. "Child prodigy or misguided idealist," read one headline. "The dreamer's tech is too impractical for the real world," proclaimed another. Matteo was no stranger to skepticism, but the scale of the backlash was overwhelming. Yet every time doubt began to creep in, Ronaldo reminded him of his strength. "Matteo, every great change has enemies. If no one's fighting you, it probably means you aren't challenging anything worthwhile." Amid the turbulence, Matteo received a surprising message. It was from the same tech mogul whose lucrative offer he had turned down months before. The message was simple: "We need to talk." At first, Matteo was reluctant. He didn't trust the motives of someone who had tried to buy out his invention. But Ronaldo encouraged him to hear the mogul out. "Sometimes, even those who doubt you can become your strongest allies," Ronaldo said. The meeting was tense at first. The mogul, a sharp-dressed woman named Emilia Hart, sat across from Matteo and Ronaldo, her demeanor calm but serious. "I underestimated you," Emilia admitted. "And I underestimated the world's hunger for change. Your refusal to sell wasn't just brave, it was the right move. Matteo didn't know how to respond. Was this an apology or another ploy? Emilia continued, I want to help. Not to control your vision, but to expand it. I've seen the light and I want to be part of this movement. Though wary, Matteo decided to take a chance. Together, they formed a partnership, with clear terms ensuring that the technology remained accessible to all. Emilia's expertise and resources fast-tracked the development of Matteo's innovations, propelling them onto a larger stage than ever before. With Emilia's connections and Ronaldo's influence, Matteo's energy harvesting shoes and other innovations began to spread rapidly. Pilot programs in cities around the world showed remarkable success. Streets embedded with energy harvesting tiles powered public lighting systems. Gyms equipped with energy capturing machines provided electricity for local shelters. Even crowded marketplaces used the technology to power stalls and charge devices. One particularly striking story came from a remote island community that had been struggling with unreliable electricity for decades. With the introduction of Matteo's technology, the residents were able to light their homes consistently for the first time. The transformation was captured by journalists, and the footage went viral. A local fisherman, his face illuminated by a newly installed light, said, "We used to be in the dark literally and figuratively. Now, we can dream of a brighter future." As the movement gained momentum, Matteo faced one final, monumental challenge: scaling the technology to urban megacities. The infrastructure demands were immense, and critics claimed it was impossible to implement such a system in places with millions of residents. To address this, Matteo and his team devised an ambitious plan. They would transform an entire district in a major city into a self-sustaining energy ecosystem. The project, called the Living City, would incorporate every aspect of Matteo's technology, from energy-generating roads to power-sharing networks in schools and public spaces. The city chosen for the pilot project was Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, a vibrant but energy-challenged metropolis. The announcement of the project sent ripples across the globe. Supporters called it the dawn of a new era. Skeptics called it a pipe dream. As the launch date approached, tensions ran high. Delays, technical glitches, and mounting pressure from skeptics made the project seem destined for failure. Matteo barely slept, spending every waking moment troubleshooting and overseeing installations. On the eve of the launch, he stood on a rooftop overlooking the city, the sprawling network of his work glimmering faintly below. Ronaldo joined him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "This is it, Matteo," he said. "Tomorrow, you'll show the world what's possible." Matteo nodded, his resolve firm. "It's not about me anymore. It's about proving that the world can change if we believe in it." The launch was a spectacle. Journalists, politicians, engineers, and everyday citizens gathered in Rio's main square to witness history in the making. Matteo stood on stage, dwarfed by the grandeur of the event but emboldened by the presence of those who believed in him. "Today," he began, his voice steady, "we take the first step toward a world where energy is not just a commodity, it's a right. Let me show you what happens when a city walks together." With a signal from Matteo, the network powered up. The square lit up as thousands of footsteps activated the energy harvesting tiles below. Nearby, a school switched on its lights, powered entirely by the movement of children playing outside. A public charging station buzzed to life, allowing people to charge their phones for free. The audience erupted in applause, tears streaming down the faces of some who had doubted the project would work. News anchors declared it a revolution in real time, and social media exploded with hashtags like #LivingCity and #MatteoTheVisionary. One of Matteo's harshest critics approached him after the demonstration. The man extended a hand, his expression one of genuine admiration. "I was wrong about you," he admitted. "This isn't just an idea, it's a movement. You've shown us what's possible." Matteo shook his hand, humbled but proud. "It's not about proving anyone wrong," he said. It's about proving what's right. In the weeks that followed, the living city became a blueprint for urban sustainability worldwide. Governments, companies, and communities collaborated to implement similar systems, inspired by Matteo's unwavering belief in the power of small actions. Matteo's journey from a boy with a notebook to a global change-maker became the stuff of legend. But he remained grounded, often reminding those around him, "This isn't just my story. It's ours. Every step we take together moves us closer to a brighter future." Ronaldo, watching his protege change the world, couldn't have been prouder. "Matteo taught me something," he said in an interview. "In football, we say it's all about the goals. But in life, it's about the steps that get you there." Would you like me to elaborate further on the ripple effects of Matteo's innovation or dive deeper into his personal growth? Months after Matteo's groundbreaking presentation, his invention had transitioned from a mere concept to a fully functional prototype. The energy harvesting shoes, now refined and polished, became a symbol of hope and innovation. Global media hailed them as a revolutionary step toward sustainable energy, calling Matteo a prodigy destined to change the world. Matteo's story was shared in newspapers, television programs, and across social media platforms. Journalists emphasized the heartwarming tale of a boy who had been overlooked, only to rise and capture the world's imagination with his brilliance and determination. But what truly made Matteo's invention special wasn't just the technology itself, it was the story behind it. Every pair of energy harvesting shoes was imprinted with the phrase, "Every step counts." It wasn't just a slogan. It was a reminder that even the smallest actions, when done with purpose, could lead to extraordinary outcomes. The businessman who had once scoffed at Matteo's dream now found himself in a position he hadn't anticipated. Sitting in his sleek office, he watched as news outlets covered Matteo's success, featuring interviews with global leaders, scientists, and even celebrities praising the young innovator. "He's just a kid," the man muttered under his breath, but his voice carried no conviction. Deep down, he knew he had misjudged Matteo. More than that, he knew the boy had proven him wrong in ways he could never have imagined. One evening, the man attended an industry conference where Matteo was the keynote speaker. As Matteo took the stage to thunderous applause, the businessman shrank into his seat. Matteo's words were not bitter or vengeful but instead focused on unity and innovation. "We're all walking this road together," Matteo said, his voice steady. "It's not about who doubted us. It's about proving that when we believe in a better future, nothing is impossible." The man left the event humbled, his thoughts swirling with regret. Despite his meteoric rise, Matteo remained grounded. His humility and compassion became as widely admired as his intellect. One day, while reviewing proposals for new projects, Matteo came across a familiar name. It was the businessman who had mocked him in the street. Rather than rejecting the proposal outright, Matteo chose to meet with the man. "Why did you apply to work with us?" Matteo asked, his tone curious but calm. The man hesitated, his usual arrogance replaced by sincerity. "I was wrong about you," he admitted. "I didn't see the potential you had, and I regret the way I treated you. But I believe in what you're doing now. I want to help." Matteo studied him carefully, then extended a hand. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he said simply. "Let's make sure we're walking in the right direction this time." While Matteo's invention captured the world's attention, Ronaldo worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the boy's personal life was just as remarkable as his professional journey. True to his word, Ronaldo made sure Matteo had a home, a modest but comfortable apartment near the headquarters of the innovation lab where he worked. More than that, Ronaldo took Matteo under his wing, helping him navigate the complexities of fame and success. He introduced Matteo to mentors who could guide him in areas like public speaking, leadership, and philanthropy. But Ronaldo also made sure Matteo enjoyed the simple joys of childhood, taking him to football matches, sharing meals, and reminding him to take breaks amidst his busy schedule. I didn't just want to support his dreams, Ronaldo said in an interview. I wanted to make sure he could enjoy the journey. With the stability Ronaldo provided, Matteo began to focus on what mattered most to him, empowering others. Using the proceeds from his invention, he launched a foundation dedicated to supporting young innovators from underprivileged backgrounds. The foundation provided resources like scholarships, mentorship programs, and access to state-of-the-art labs. Talent is everywhere, Matteo often said. Opportunity is not. My job is to make sure no kid with a dream has to feel like they don't belong. One of the first recipients of the foundation's support was a girl from a rural village who had created a water purification system using natural materials. Another was a teenager who had designed a low-cost medical device to monitor heart rates. Matteo personally mentored each of them, sharing his story and encouraging them to think big. As Matteo's work expanded, the impact of his technology became evident in unexpected ways. In bustling cities, people began walking and cycling more, knowing their movements were powering streetlights and public spaces. In rural areas, schools that once operated without electricity now glowed with light, enabling evening classes and better opportunities for students. One of the most touching moments came from a small town where a school principal wrote to Matteo, saying, "Your invention didn't just bring us light, it brought us hope. Our children believe they can achieve anything now, because they see how you did." Matteo kept the letter framed on his desk as a reminder of why he started. "This is bigger than energy," he often said. "This is about showing people what's possible." As the years passed, Matteo's shoes became more than a product, they became a symbol of a movement. People from all walks of life began wearing them, not just for their functionality but for what they represented: resilience, creativity, and the power of believing in oneself. Celebrities wore them on red carpets. Activists marched in them during protests. Athletes trained in them, knowing their efforts were fueling something greater. Every pair sold contributed to funding renewable energy projects in underserved areas, making Matteo's dream of accessible energy a reality. One day, Matteo and Ronaldo sat together, reflecting on the journey they had shared. "You changed my life," Matteo said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know where I'd be if you hadn't stopped that day." Ronaldo smiled, shaking his head. "You would have found a way, Matteo. You always had the brilliance and the determination. I just gave you a little push." Matteo laughed. "A little push? You gave me the world." Ronaldo leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "No, Matteo. You gave the world something much more valuable, you gave it a reason to hope." Decades later, Matteo's innovations had reshaped the way the world thought about energy. His story became a part of school curriculums, inspiring generations of young people to dream beyond their circumstances. But Matteo himself remained the same humble boy who had once sketched in a battered notebook on the streets of Madrid. When asked what he considered his greatest achievement, Matteo always gave the same answer: "It's not the technology or the recognition. It's the people who believed they could make a difference because they saw that I could." And as Ronaldo watched his protégé receive awards, give speeches, and inspire millions, he knew he had made the right choice that day on the street. Because sometimes, all it takes to change the world is one person willing to stop and ask, "What's that you're drawing?" Would you like to explore the reflective closing section or discuss Matteo's broader global influence? In the end, the story of Matteo, Cristiano Ronaldo, and the energy harvesting shoes became a testament to the power of believing in something greater than yourself. It was a story about how a single, fleeting moment, one act of kindness, one question can lead to a chain of events that change everything. For Matteo, the boy who had once been dismissed, the journey to becoming a global innovator had begun with a question: "What's that you're drawing?" It was a question that seemed so simple, but it carried with it the weight of possibility, the promise of a different future. A future in which his idea, once mocked and ignored, was now saving lives, creating jobs, and changing how the world thought about energy. Cristiano Ronaldo, the man who had everything the world thought it could offer, fame, wealth, and recognition, found something even more meaningful in that moment. It wasn't the fame or the fortune that mattered in the end. It was the realization that sometimes, the most valuable thing you can give someone is a chance. The world is full of people like Matteo, individuals with incredible potential, but often with little to no support. They're often invisible to the rest of society, their ideas dismissed before they've even had the chance to speak them. But just as a small spark can ignite a forest fire, a small act of kindness, a single moment of belief can change everything. When Ronaldo first encountered Matteo, the young boy was sitting alone on a sidewalk in Madrid, unnoticed by the masses. His clothes were worn, his face tired, but his eyes shone with something the world hadn't yet recognized: brilliance. The moment Ronaldo stopped, the course of history was changed. But the most profound thing about their story wasn't the success or the fame, it was the way it rippled through the world. Ronaldo didn't just offer Matteo a chance, he helped make a place for him in a world that wasn't always kind to dreamers. He ensured that the young inventor wasn't just a headline or a passing moment in the news. He became a symbol of hope, a beacon of possibility for anyone who had ever been told their dreams were too big. Every step Matteo took, every move he made, wasn't just about himself. It was about everyone who would see his success and think, if he can do it, so can I. Whether it was a young girl in a remote village dreaming of creating clean water for her community, or a boy in a crowded city who believed he could change how the world thought about waste management, Matteo's success became a catalyst for change across the globe. And just as important was the impact Ronaldo's decision had on those around him. By offering a chance to someone who was often overlooked, Ronaldo showed the world the importance of lifting others up, especially when they are at their lowest. He didn't just change the course of one boy's life, he became a role model for millions, reminding them that true greatness isn't measured by how many people praise you, but by how many lives you touch and change for the better. The invention that came from Matteo's mind didn't just stay as a prototype or a technological marvel, it grew. It became a force for good. The energy harvesting shoes didn't just power lights in city streets, they powered hope. Every new pair sold wasn't just a product, it was a contribution to changing the way people thought about energy, progress, and innovation. More than that, they became a reminder to every person who wore them: you have the power to make a difference. Whether they were walking to work, running for a cause, or simply enjoying an evening with friends, the shoes were a constant reminder that small, everyday actions could create monumental change. As the technology continued to evolve, it wasn't just the wealthy and the powerful who had access to it. The people who needed it the most, the people who lived in places where electricity was scarce, or who walked miles every day to get water, were the ones who benefited the most. Schools in rural villages had energy for the first time. Hospitals in underserved areas were able to run life-saving machines. The streets of cities in developing nations lit up, all because of a boy's idea. But the true measure of the invention's success wasn't just in the technology, it was in the people whose lives were changed. It was in the communities that were given the tools to thrive, the young inventors who now had a platform to share their ideas, and the families who could now live in dignity and opportunity. Matteo's shoes weren't just about energy, they were about empowerment. They were about giving people the resources to build their own futures. At the heart of this story was the belief that anything is possible. It wasn't just about the power of technology, or the drive to succeed. It was about the simple truth that everyone has the ability to change the world. Matteo didn't come from privilege or fame, he came from nothing. But he had something that could never be taken away: a mind full of ideas and a heart full of determination. Ronaldo believed in him, not because of his background or his social standing, but because he saw the potential in the boy. He saw the spark of greatness, the same spark that was present in every person who has ever dared to dream big. As the years passed, and Matteo's invention grew, Ronaldo's own legacy became intertwined with the boy's. They both had become symbols of hope, symbols of the belief that no matter who you are or where you come from, your ideas matter. The world, for all its noise and chaos, can be changed. And sometimes, it just takes one person to say, "I believe in you." When asked about the moment that changed everything, Ronaldo often reflected on that question, "What's that you're drawing?" It seemed so simple at the time, so insignificant. But it wasn't. In that question was the beginning of a journey that would change countless lives. In that question was the realization that sometimes, the most important thing you can do is stop and listen. It wasn't just a question, it was an invitation. An invitation to believe in something extraordinary. It was an invitation to see beyond the surface and look deeper. It was a challenge to look past the labels and stereotypes society often places on people and see the person underneath. And when that question was asked, everything changed. Matteo's life changed. Ronaldo's life changed. The lives of millions of people around the world changed. The greatest stories are often the simplest. They are stories of ordinary people who, through their actions, change the course of history. It's not always about having the most resources or the best opportunities. Sometimes, it's about having a vision and the courage to pursue it. It's about stepping into the unknown with nothing but belief in yourself. And sometimes, it takes someone else, someone who believes in you when no one else does, to help you take that first step. It's about knowing that you don't have to do it alone. Because sometimes, all it takes is one moment. One act of kindness. One person who believes in your dreams. And suddenly, everything becomes possible. The future, it turns out, is built one step at a time.